A woman finds a drifting bottle on the beach during her morning run. When she opens it, she discovers a perfectly preserved letter, a man's heartfelt message to his late wife. The writing is breathtaking, the emotions vivid, and every word reveals the author's extraordinary talent. Lost in the depth of his grief and expression, she can't take her eyes off the letter until she finishes reading every last word. Not wanting such brilliant writing to be buried in obscurity, Theresa brings the letter to her office and shares it with her co-workers. Everyone is captivated by the love letter, and even her usually aloof boss Charlie is full of praise. But just one day later, Theresa regrets ever taking the letter to work. Without anyone's permission, Charlie publishes the love letter in the newspaper.
Excuse me, Theresa, it's not your letter.
Yeah, I know it's not my letter.
Right.
I found it.
Is this getting personal? Is that why you're so pissed off?
I'm not pissed off. I'm just a little pissed off.
His action is no different from theft, but as a mere employee, Theresa feels powerless. After some time, the contents of the bottle letter spread widely among the public. As the readership grows, so does the company's revenue. To keep the profits rolling, Charlie assigns people to collect every response to the letter, hoping Theresa can find something equally valuable among them. At first, Theresa shows no interest in this task until she sees a familiar name.
Dear Catherine.
No. Are you kidding? Really?
Catherine, mentioned in the letter as the deceased wife. The style and emotion in this new letter are identical to the one she found, proving both were written by the same man. She learns that this second letter was also discovered by a reader during a walk along the beach. Suddenly, Theresa becomes obsessed with the identity of the mysterious writer. What kind of deeply loving man expresses his grief through message bottles, one after another? With help from experts, they identify the model of the printer used for the letters. Combining that with the discovery locations and other clues, Theresa narrows the origin down to 18 Foster Lane, St. Clair. Theresa used the excuse of helping the company uncover the letter writer's story to convince Charlie to send her there for the investigation, but Charlie sees right through her motives.
Can't spare you. Need you here. Why do you have to do this personally?
What do you mean personally? I'm intrigued. So what?
Intrigued. So what if this guy is covered in tattoos and has 4 serious convictions? Your expectations are too high.
I don't have any. This is research.
Eventually, he agrees, after Theresa threatens to resign. On her journey, Theresa imagines what the man might look like. Even she doesn't realize it yet. Those 2 letters have already stirred something in her heart that hadn't moved in 8 years. The next day, she finally arrives and walks up to a house with excitement. But to her disappointment, the man she imagined, handsome, brilliant, elegant, does not appear. The old man eyed her warily and asked her purpose for being there. Theresa hesitates, then claims she's just a photographer on a trip who lost her way.
Can't say yes or no. That's my son's place.
Upon hearing the news, the spark that had died out in Theresa's heart suddenly reignited. Following the old man's directions, she arrives at the pier and instantly spots him. Something deep inside tells her this is the man she's been searching for. Garrett assumes she's just a tourist interested in sailing and invites her aboard after answering a few questions.
I'm Theresa Osborne.
Garrett Blake.
Feeling guilty for making his private letter public, Theresa doesn't reveal her real reason for coming. She only says her boss sent her to document the local culture. The conversation soon runs dry, and Theresa awkwardly prepares to leave.
I'm taking her out tomorrow morning. Test sailed. Around the point and back. Just about an hour. If you want to come along.
But Garrett invites her to go sailing again sometime. Of course, Theresa accepts with a bright smile. After agreeing on the time and place, she finds a place to stay in town. The next morning, filled with nervous anticipation, Theresa goes to the bar where they agreed to meet. But what she sees shakes her. Garrett is in a fistfight with someone. This completely shattered the image of Garrett she had built up in her heart. After just a brief glance at her, Garrett walks out of the bar. Theresa follows him to the dock.
Thought you wouldn't come.
Well, actually, I came to say that I'm not coming. But I didn't want to not show because I just hate people like that, so...
I'm sorry you saw that.
When Garrett shows no intention of explaining, Theresa turns to leave. But then a voice calls out behind her, "I don't like fighting, Theresa." She doesn't know why, but somehow she believes him. Just as the sailboat was about to leave the dock, Theresa impulsively jumped aboard.
Where am I not in your way?
I'll get around you.
With just one short sentence, Theresa became even more certain of her suspicion. A man this gentle would never resort to violence without a reason. There had to be more to the story. Out on the vast, boundless ocean, the sailboat drifted freely under Garrett's control. Unable to contain her curiosity, Theresa asked about the fight at the bar. but it seemed to touch on something Garrett was unwilling to revisit, his painful past. So she received no answer. As a reader of the 2 letters, Theresa suspected it had something to do with the wife Garrett had mourned so deeply. Still married? No. You? Nope. I have a son. Date much? No. Far from the city's noise, the rhythmic crashing of waves brought a quiet peace to their hearts. Through simple questions and honest answers, they slowly got to know each other while passing the time on their trial voyage. With every exchange, the distance between them faded. Soon the boat returned to the dock, and in her rush to get back to the inn, Theresa forgot her jacket on board. As evening fell, Garrett arrived to return it.
Hi.
You forgot this.
Oh, thank you. You want to come in?
In the still of the night, the 2 of them stood alone in a quiet room. The light-hearted chatter from earlier on the boat was gone, replaced by a new, uncertain tension. Theresa thanked him repeatedly, trying to fill the silence until Garrett awkwardly walked to the door, then turned back hesitantly.
Eat red meat?
Sometimes.
I make a perfect steak. It's the best thing I do.
Faced with such a childish pickup attempt, Theresa felt no disdain. Instead, Garrett's image in her mind grew even more endearing. Although they had only spent an hour together that morning, Garrett didn't know why. But when facing Theresa, the door in his heart that had been tightly locked since his wife's death miraculously opened a small crack. Theresa arrived at the dinner as promised, and over drinks they talked and shared their stories. From childhood to careers, from first love to marriage, they walked together along the shore until late into the night, and just before entering the house, Theresa remembered something. She had meant to confess that she was the one who exposed his private letters to the world, but when the moment came, she couldn't bring herself to say it. She knew, if Garrett found out, their relationship would likely end that very night. Garrett might even resent her for it. They talked late into the night again, and from then on, everything between them changed. They spoke about Garrett's unfinished sailboat, took evening rides on the sea, and went fishing together. They laughed on the boat, relaxed on the beach, and with each passing day, their connection grew stronger. Joy and fullness became the rhythm of their lives. But Theresa never expected that the very love Garrett had for his late wife, the reason she fell for him, would become their greatest obstacle. Theresa had merely touched one of Catherine's belongings by accident, yet the usually gentle and caring Garrett snapped at her unexpectedly. Hurt, Theresa left the house in disappointment, only to run into Garrett's father, Dodge. He asked what happened. I made a mistake. I moved something out of its place. Dodge glanced at the room that held Catherine's things and wasn't surprised. He gently told her not to take it to heart. As they walked along the beach, Theresa finally learned the full truth. Catherine had been one of the brightest young women in town. Her family had hoped she'd leave for the city, but she chose to stay because of Garrett, not long after she became pregnant. Due to her fragile health, she died during surgery, and the baby couldn't be saved either. This love, never approved by her parents, ultimately ended in tragedy. For 2 years, Garrett was consumed with guilt. Catherine's mother and brother tried repeatedly to retrieve her belongings, but Garrett drove them away, even threatening to die if they persisted. The fight Theresa had witnessed at the bar was sparked by Catherine's brother insulting Garrett and blaming him for her death. After learning all this, Theresa returned to the small house with Dodge. After taking some time to cool down, Garrett realized his previous behavior had been wrong, and as he apologized to Theresa, he promised it wouldn't happen again. But time flew, and the day of Theresa's departure finally came. It wasn't just work. She had a son waiting back home who needed her. Garrett expressed his understanding.
So will you come and visit me?
You mean inland? I don't go inland.
We have a lake. Okay, I'll just go back to my work and my son and...
This farewell, neither of them knew when they would meet again, and they held each other in a reluctant kiss. As Theresa's car disappeared down the road, Garrett stood there in silence for a long time. The next day, Theresa was back at work. When Charlie asked what she had found on her trip, she simply shook her head. She told him the letters were nothing more than words Garrett wrote casually, and she had no intention of exposing the story between him and Catherine. After a few days, both Theresa and Garrett returned to their old routines. She went to work and took care of her son, while Garrett continued his quiet life repairing boats. Then, the company received another letter found by a reader. But this time was different. Garrett and Catherine's names had been switched, and compared to the previous 2 letters, the content lacked some of its former brilliance. They boldly guessed it might have been written by Catherine to Garrett. Theresa didn't hand the letter over to Charlie. Instead, she hid it, determined to protect Garrett's privacy this time. Although she and Garrett had stayed in touch over the phone, she never found the courage to tell him about the message in a bottle. Eventually, Theresa made a decision.
Why don't you come see me, Garrett?
After months of missing her, Garrett finally changed his mind about staying in the small town. The reason he never left before was because his father, once an alcoholic, had been unpredictable and in need of care. Although his father was now sober, Garrett still couldn't help but worry. That was why he hadn't followed Theresa to the city. But now, he took a taxi to the address Theresa had given him and arrived at her home. To Garrett's relief, Jason, Theresa's son, was warm and open to meeting him. The three of them gathered at the dinner table, chatting and laughing. Because of Jason's presence, Theresa and Garrett kept their emotions in check. That night, Garrett slept on the couch. In the days that followed, while Theresa went to work, Garrett took care of Jason. He even introduced Jason to new experiences he'd never had before. Their bond grew far quicker than Theresa ever expected. Just as she began to imagine a future full of happiness, everything fell apart. Garrett discovered one of the bottles he had thrown into the sea, along with a newspaper article titled "Message in a Bottle." Before Theresa could ask why he was packing, her eyes fell on the bottle lying on the bed. "Where did you get this?" he asked. There was no point in hiding anymore. Theresa told him everything: how she found the letter, how it ended up in the newspaper, and why she kept it a secret. As expected, Garrett stormed out into the pouring rain. Wearing only her pajamas, Theresa chased after him, trying to explain. When he refused to listen, she stepped into his path to block him.
"I sent those letters into the sea to her, not to you. Not to all your friends at work. They all knew about me, didn't they? All about Catherine?"
My life was changed by those 3 letters. I didn't want it printed in the paper. You've got to believe
I
me.
sent 2 letters to Ted.
Then, she remembered something. She handed him the last letter she had received. It really was written by Catherine, just before her surgery. Garrett read it aloud in a quiet voice, confessing how deeply he missed his wife. Then he sat on the bed and made a request.
I want to keep this.
Theresa reached for his hand, but he gently pulled away. She couldn't stop him. Garrett returned to his hometown, but that final letter helped him let go. He finally delivered Catherine's belongings back to her family. He didn't say a word, but Catherine's mother watched from a distance. Later, Catherine's brother came to see Garrett, and through his actions, he showed how his attitude toward Garrett had changed. Their family finally forgave him. And it was all thanks to Theresa and that last letter. Yes, she had made mistakes. But for Garrett, receiving a final message from Catherine mattered more than anything else. As time passed, whatever resentment he had toward Theresa quietly faded away.
Here's your mail now.
With Catherine's brother's help, he completed the sailboat ahead of schedule. On the 25th, Theresa arrived on time, but before she could walk up to Garrett and say hello, she noticed the sailboat named Catherine. Her smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of jealousy and disappointment. Without a word, she turned and walked away from the dock. Coincidentally, Dodge witnessed the entire scene. That evening, Garrett, upset by Theresa's no-show, invited his father to grab a drink at the local bar. Over their drinks, Dodge told him what he had seen earlier that day. He hoped it would help his son finally move on from Catherine and start a new chapter in life. But instead, his words infuriated Garrett.
I didn't stay for you. This is who I am.
Now you choose. Choose. Between yesterday and tomorrow.
After leaving the bar, Garrett returned home, only to find a small box placed on his bed. He turned on the lamp, and under the soft light, a handwritten card revealed itself. "So you'll always know where you are and where home is." Beneath the card was a compass. In that moment, he made his choice between the future and the past. At dawn the next day, with his father watching and offering his blessing, Garrett set sail toward the mainland. A journey with purpose is never truly lonely, no matter how many hardships it holds. Driven by his longing to see Theresa again, he pressed forward through wind and rain, day and night. But just as he was about to reach the mainland, something unexpected happened. A red flare lit up the horizon. Someone was in trouble. Without hesitation, Garrett steered the boat toward the signal. He discovered a family of 3 stranded at sea and rushed to help. But the rescue was made perilous by the storm and low visibility. The mother of the child slipped and fell into the ocean, and Garrett dove in without a second thought. He managed to save her, but he never surfaced again. After 3 days of searching, the rescue team found only his clothes. When the news reached Theresa, she rushed back to the coastal town in grief. Dodge gives her the letter that Garrett had intended for Catherine, found on his boat.
My life began when I found you, and I thought it had ended when I failed to save you. But I was wrong. A woman named Theresa showed me that if I was brave enough to open my heart, I could love again no matter how terrible my grief. She made me realize I was only half alive, It scared me and it hurt. And I didn't know how much I needed her until the night I watched her fly away. And now tomorrow I'm going to sail to the Windy Point, and I'm going to say goodbye to you and see if I can win her heart.
Their story began with a letter and ended with one, a dramatic encounter and a heartbreaking farewell. And with that, the film comes to an end.